Hey everyone, welcome to the second annual Inno on Fire celebration. I am Ian Anderson, market president and publisher of the Tampa Bay Business Journal sister publication, Tampa Bay Inno. Normally, we'd be with you in a crowded but incredible reception venue with loud music, standing shoulder to shoulder, having drinks and great conversation, reflecting on what an incredible year we've had. And last year at Inno on Fire, we had a dancing robot, which just added to the fun. Well, 2020. 2020 had a different plan for how we celebrate together this year. But the important thing is that there are indeed great things to be celebrating. And we're excited to be able to be with you virtually to recognize some truly great people, great organizations, and companies today. Now, our 2020 class of honorees range in size, industry, age, and stage. They've all had their moments in different ways. They're sizzling with new funding and rising revenue. They're on the heels of entries and exits and pivots, and all of this during a pretty challenging period of time. Now, COVID-19 challenged these ventures, threatened their futures, and made growth that much harder. For some, the pandemic created opportunity. For others, it issued a major test that these players have passed. Now, we hope you enjoy Inno on Fire as an opportunity to look back on what these amazing people, organizations, and startups have accomplished over the last year, and the chance to look forward to the projects and endeavors that they're working on for the future. Now, before we get started, I'd like to just take a moment and say that we launched Tampa Bay Inno just under 2 years ago. Now, I had recently relocated to Tampa Bay from our Business Journal corporate headquarters up in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I was actually returning to the area after being away for 7 years. Now, one of the biggest changes that I was struck by as I became reintroduced to the community was this incredible and quickly emerging startup ecosystem. Now, there were some really interesting winds that were swirling here like never before, from capital sources and funding mechanisms to accelerators and incubators to exits. Now, there were mentors and funders that were willing to dedicate their time, their talent, and their resources. And there was also a collaboration of so many organizations with one common goal, and that was to support the ecosystem. Now, one item that was sorely missing was local startup coverage. There just wasn't enough startup news to help get the story out and about what was going on here in Tampa Bay. Now, there were definitely some stories that made it out. They were making it into Forbes or Inc. magazine or other national publications, and that's great and it's needed, and we need more of those. But we believed that there was a space to be filled by launching Tampa Bay Inno, which was dedicated to dive deep into the local startup community and it really just embed itself into it. We believed that there was enough great startups here to justify launching a publication, and that there was enough of an audience here that actually wanted to read it. Now, I mention all of this because we're coming up, as I said, on Inno's second birthday, and we look back and we couldn't be more proud of the work that we've done, and we couldn't be more excited about the path ahead. I also say this because we wouldn't be able to do this without you, because you're the ones that you're creating the news, and we get to cover it every day. I also say this because without the support of our founding partners, the economics of Tampa Bay Inno become a little bit steeper. And with that, I'd like to thank our incredible founding partners, who I truly believe to be not just sponsors, but they are partners of Tampa Bay Inno. And they're so supportive in the importance of having news coverage on Tampa Bay's emerging startup community. So with that, I'd like to give a special thanks to our founding partners, Synapse, University of Tampa, and Omni Public. We appreciate your support and couldn't do what we do without you. Now, I encourage everybody here today, please take some time to check out our partners and how they can help you. They've invested in supporting innovation and the businesses in the Tampa Bay ecosystem. And now, here's the moment we're all waiting for. I'd like to introduce you to the familiar face who you've come to know and love, the one who's responsible for delivering now over 174 Inno newsletters, and over 565,000 emails sent. She's emceed a countless number of events. She's judged startup competitions, and she has become the face of covering Tampa Bay's startup scene. Please welcome Lauren Coffey, staff reporter for Tampa Bay Inno.
Hello, thanks, Ian. Quite the intro you gave me. Thank you to everyone who is here today. I'm so excited you're here, whether this is your first event or your 10th with us. Just thank you so much. Like Ian said, I'm Lauren Coffey, and I am the reporter behind Tampa Bay Inno. So we have a lot of fun stuff planned for you today. But before we get into all that, just a little bit about who we are and what we're doing here today. Tampa Bay Inno is part of American Inno, which is in 14 cities across the nation in DC, Atlanta, Austin, Boston, and we cover tech, innovation, and startups. So we do that a couple different ways. We have daily news stories. We have a newsletter, which in Tampa Bay's case is twice a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays, and it kind of just covers everything you need to know. So there's fundings, there's hirings, there's profiles, jobs, events. So I'd encourage you to sign up for that. You can go to tampabayinno.com and there'll be a little window that pops up. You just enter your information and it'll come starting tomorrow afternoon at 1:30. So make sure to do that. And then we also have events like this. So like Ian said, we are honoring 50 of the tech and startup companies that have had a huge growth this year and are quote unquote on fire. We had our audience a few months ago submit nominations and we whittled that down to 50. And then we're honoring them today. We also are announcing our Blazer Award winners. So we had a panel of esteemed local judges choose one from each of the 10 categories, a standout in each of those, just someone who really is exemplifying Inno on fire and blazing a path in their market. So lots of puns going on, lots of fun stuff. But before we get into that, in that video, we have our own panel today with fire honorees. So I'd like to have our panelists come on. We have Dennis Hansen, co-founder of Knack, Emma Maurer, VP of Business Development at Peerfit, and Eric Maltes, CEO at Immertec. Hello, everyone. Perfect. Hi. Before we get started, I just want to remind our audience to submit any questions you may have for our panelists throughout, and we will have a little Q&A session at the end. So make sure to do that. But welcome, guys. How's everyone doing?
Awesome. Thanks for having us.
Great, thank you.
Good. Thanks for being here today. So we chose each of you because despite the pandemic, you have not only survived, but you actually all three have thrived during this time, which is really difficult to say. So what pivots did you have to make in order to ensure success still happened this year? And Emma, we can start with you.
Yeah, thank you, and thanks for having us. Look, the biggest one for us was truly to the kind of the solution that we're providing our users as a platform that was built on sending its users to gyms and studios in person. We've always offered digital solutions, but we pivoted to really make sure that the digital solution was our focus. We built a specific digital-only option so that our customers could purchase things that they currently had access to. And a real tribute to the team that I work with was that we did this in about 4 weeks, right? We saw the pandemic coming. We knew that we needed to make some adjustments and did so in a very quick period of time. I think the other thing that's really a credit to the industry and the solution that we're providing and the hand-holding and the partnership we have with our network providers is that a lot of those in-person, the studios and gyms, were also able to pivot and offer digital content. And we were then able to offer our users access to that content through their Peerfit app.
Okay, yeah, exciting stuff on both ends. Eric, what about you?
With our situation, it was a little bit different. I think that we did not so much that we had to pivot, but we had to expand our aperture. We originally were expecting to grow slowly and validate our concept in 10 additional locations, as we did in 2019 in one location. And all of a sudden the pandemic happened and every single potential customer had 100% awareness of the problem we were solving and an immediate need for our solution, not a year from now, but right now. And so that required us to build out a team really fast and then streamline, we're trying to build like a strong ship, if I can use the analogy, and we had to find out how to pivot that into a surfboard to deal with a tsunami. And now we're like on the edge of the wave trying to keep ourselves above float. So I think that's just awareness of what's happening in the environment, awareness of what your customers need in their perspective, empathy for their situation, and just trying to that's where I think most of our focus is.
Dennis, what about you?
Yeah, it's been a wild time, probably for all businesses. And it's funny, we have a very similar story to Emma and Peerfit. It's wild. For most of our life cycle, we were purely in-person tutoring. Really never did anything with online until the middle of last year. We built an online platform. So we got really, really lucky in that timing that we were kind of positioned. But the online platform was really basic. It was just video chat. So as soon as COVID started, usage went off a cliff. So we looked at what we could do to improve our online platform, and we ended up building things like a whiteboard and more real-time features that allow students to have the same quality, if not better, type of sessions than they had online. And I think building out that classroom, as we call it, it was a big piece of sort of unlocking continued opportunities. And then with the market and selling to schools, lots of schools were trying to virtualize their services, and we were at a time where we built out this new solution, and we could help these tutoring centers virtualize their services effectively overnight. So yeah, we worked really hard, built the classroom, a new version of the classroom, really in about a month or so, and everybody worked their tails off to make that happen. And then yeah, we kind of were there right in time to help tutoring centers sort of virtualize their services for free, and that's really been helpful to really go after sort of a new market, because really we were working outside of tutoring centers, but then we realized we can come and help them leverage this online technology. So it's been a lot of change, but I think we're stronger for it.
Yeah, no, that's a good way to put it. I know a few of you touched on this just now, but you all have had huge growth this year, in part because people are seeing that your industries are so much more needed than they thought they were. Do you think this need will continue once things have gone to quote unquote normal, or do you think it may come back a little bit?
I guess, and what is normal, right? As much as I think we would all, love to be able to say, come January 1, we're putting 2020 behind us, everything's a new day, it's a new year, let's kind of refresh. That's not going to be the case, right? For us, kind of from an industry perspective, we're on a roller coaster. There's been other markets today announced that they're shutting down again to manage the pandemic. So I think the very nature in which we approach the way we do business will remain the same. We will continue at Peerfit our digital strategy. We will look at other options and other products to sell in a market that is a bit volatile. And I think what we saw as markets started to open and some folks were able and wanted to go back to gyms and have that experience in person, we also had to acknowledge that there are those that just weren't ready, whether they're fearful of the cleanliness of the gym, they're fearful of being too close to others. We have to understand that there's going to be different levels in which people are ready to get back to whatever that normal is. And we certainly don't think this is going to be a quick turnaround, that we're going to have to be patient and kind of, for us, see our digital products and others behind them staying around for quite some time.
Yeah, and I'll coattail off of that, totally mirror that sentiment. A lot of the change has been somewhat permanent, especially how people see, gathering together, and I think that won't change for a while. But overall, I think it's just put a lot of pressure on sort of traditional institutions to change and become sort of technology ready for whatever happens, especially if that means virtualizing. So I think the need to have technology to do that, and as well as really just all of the investment and innovation in terms of the quality of online experiences that you can have really changed in a permanent way that I think have given those experiences an edge over in person in many ways, and for many people that don't feel comfortable coming in person. And now that those great options are available, I think people will continue to utilize them. So I definitely see a lasting change.
Yeah, and on our side, one of the reasons why we went after this approach is because medical information is my grandfather's time was doubled every 50 years. In my father's time, it was doubled every 10 years. And today, if you graduate from from medical school, then the medical information is doubled in 74 days. That's alarming. So there's just so many advancements. So there was already, it just wasn't scalable. We have a huge shortage of physicians. There's a bigger suicide problem for physician fatigue than there is for veteran suicide, yet we know about it more. If you go by the amount of physicians it is. So we knew that it was going to be a big problem. And then I think that the level of awareness that the pandemic has created will kind of change the market. And we're seeing that. I mean, we've even had, this is anecdotal, but it's still, we just hired a VP of education, training, and research. He was previously a part of a task force for one of the top 3 medical device manufacturers in the world, his job was to find find companies to solve this problem. We were one of them, and then he was supposed to fly around, and halfway through our his meeting with us and as presenting how we could help his company, he was like, "Hey, will you take my resume? I'm interested in working with you." And he had a lot of experience, et cetera. But the point is that he provided to us like, "Hey, this is the PowerPoint that I made for our company, demonstrating, like, before it was all in-person training for surgeons. It was really unscalable, difficult for the surgeons and for us, and costly. And there's personalities like, I don't want to be in the same hotel as this other surgeon. I don't like him or her." And so there's all kinds of like little nuances, dramatic nuances involved. And then now it's like all online, and there's like a fatigue around that. It's like, I mean, some people you could just call them, but they're like, "Should I send you the Zoom link?" It's like, why wouldn't we do it on a call, right? And so he believes that the future, and this is what he presented to that top medical device manufacturer, is that it's a mixed modality. So it's going to be a blended. There's going to be some type of like what we do, and some that are going to be a Zoom, and some that are going to be in person still. It's going to be curriculums that are built around learning retention, which is like different experiences with the content. And that's where we really think the future is going to.
Yeah, I think, and Lauren, I think that's a really important distinction to make. I think regardless whether it be strategy, marketing, or just a general approach, we follow the kind of the same mantra in that we serve an over 65 population, we serve an under 65 population, but our clients are always our users, but we serve employers who are facing struggles to keep their employees engaged and keep a culture when they're all working remote, and helping them find ways to do that through our digital technology.
Yeah. A lot of things people say when you think about things like Blockbuster and Netflix, and you're like, oh, the online is good. It's not going to be a Blockbuster. It's going to be like a nail in a screw. I mean, all of us are in a home or a building. I guarantee there's some type of a split 50-50 of screws and nails, right? It just has a different purpose, right? Sometimes you're going to use a screw, sometimes you're going to use the nail, but they're not mutually exclusive, right? And so I think that's what's going to happen with these different modalities, different ways to interact with other humans in order to get to the end goal, right?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think it won't be like a one size fits all thing. It'll be like what you were saying. It's a mix of everything. Really good points that you made. So you also all have raised funding this year. I know Emma and Eric, your companies raised millions at the beginning of the pandemic. And then Dennis, you guys raised internal funding recently and had some partnerships. So what has it been like to approach investors and raise this funding?
Who do you want to go?
I can start. If we keep the order the same, please interject as you guys wish. But we knew at the end of last year that we needed funding, and ours also, Lauren, was an internal round prior to the pandemic, which is of course a much different conversation as you kind of start needing to approach funding during a pandemic, which we kind of didn't have to deal with. But we were successful in that endeavor at the beginning of this year.
Yeah, but I think it's a relationship thing, and so I started a lot of relationships really early on, and just it's about under promise and over deliver, and just continue contact, and just be, leaning back a little bit. Hey, right now we may not be a right fit. You may not see where we need to be at the moment, but sometime soon I bet you would, and you're exactly the type of partner I'd like to have. I'm going to call upon you one day. I'm going to ask you, if you're ready at that point, and then you take away the pressure, and then they can learn about what you're doing and just build that relationship. So we'd already done that in advance. The pandemic happened, and we realized, like, wow, we need to accelerate our growth. We need to hire in a full team, implementation team, based on what we believed originally. And in 17 days, we oversubscribed. We were originally trying to raise 4. We ended up raising 6. And now we're going to market with our Series B for raising 50 million right now. And so it's just, you just have to keep the relationships and just build them out, and just be aware, understanding like what people's thesis is and where they normally invest and where they're comfortable. And it's you have to it's a really weird combination of stuff, but it's basically start the conversations as soon as possible, way before you're ready.
Yeah, definitely mirror.
Dennis, agree?
Yeah, definitely mirror that sentiment there, especially with relationships. All of our funding has come from internal investors who really saw the juncture we were at as a company and how we were uniquely positioned in the market and said, hey, what do we need to do, in order to really offer this on a larger scale and really scale out this offering for tutoring centers. And and we said, well, let's make something happen. But ultimately, it was because we did have that trusted relationship that we worked on for a long time. And then I think another good point to make is last year, Samir had the foresight of thinking about future uncertainty and taking a little more than we previously wanted because of some uncertainty around the election and lots of thinking around a potential downturn. I think it's probably a good lesson to take a little more than you think you need, especially because you never know when another 2020 is going to come around.
Yeah, I mean, I would
Yep.
I think that's a key one that I see a lot of problems is that if you're going to take money from someone and they're going to be able to write you a significant check and you should have some assumption that they're sophisticated or at least a successful entrepreneur themselves. It's not, we're not taking someone's paycheck. This is because they invested it well or because they built a business. Either way, it comes from with some type of knowledge. If you go to them and tell them you're trying to do something and you need $500,000 to do that, they know that $500,000 is only going to get you so far. So it's actually, it introduces way more risk than if you're asking for a legitimate number. So it's like, understand your business, understand what the inputs are, and understand what it's going to take to get to the next level of traction and ask for that, and don't be embarrassed because maybe they don't see the valuation that means, and they say like, well, I don't see that valuation. That's fine. Maybe sometime in the future you will, but I'm going to start the conversation with you. And I think after you just show people that, by the time they catch with you next time, you may be 3 times the valuation as you are now, and then people are more encouraged to take a little bit more risk and to get on because they see the trajectory that you're moving towards.
I think one thing we've learned, and I'm not directly responsible for the fundraising efforts at Peerfit, but I get to witness the team that do that. And I think a couple of things to take note of is it's so much easier to approach those that understand your business, right? Are in your business, understand the way that you operate. But I think a lot of it too is around some storytelling. Where have you been and where are you going? If you can get them to really capture and grab on to the vision that you have for your own company and what the next 5, 6, 10, 2 years look like, months, 2 years look like, you can be a little bit more successful in getting their attention.
Yeah, absolutely. And then finding them, by the way, that's another thing too. It's like very easy to find a lot of information about who they've invested in, what their actual current business is, and do all that research. And if someone's going to give you their time, I make this joke whenever I meet with anyone that's like, look, I'm really in it for the free coffee, so I have no other expectations besides you're going to buy me coffee here. That's enough. I'm pretty cheap date here. So, but I also know that I've done a bunch of research and I'm not wasting their time or my time. And when I have a conversation with them, I know, like, hey, with this company, this experience, or when you invested, what was it that you invested in this company for? What was it the thing that brought you to that deal? Especially if it's one that they didn't exit in, right? Those are the things that they're looking to find again, right?
Right, definitely. And with new funding and growth comes new hiring. So I know this is kind of a weird time for that, but I know, Eric, you hired a number of executives recently, and I know Dennis with Knack is closing on 20 people by the end of the year. So what's it been like to try and hire during this time? Is there an emphasis on hiring talent locally, or with remote work, is it more just looking at the nation right now? Eric or Dennis, go ahead.
I can start. It's been interesting because people have an increased desire for security, but also with increasing remoteness, there's increased flexibility in terms of where you can work. We immediately realized that it was going to be extremely challenging to hire without considering people that were abroad, outside of Florida. We always want to have a home base here, but we did see that, especially to stay diverse and keep all different kinds of minds at the table, it was going to be challenging. So we looked a little broader, and we especially leveraged the network that we had within our company and reaching out through people that they thought were great. And that landed us with a lot of really awesome connections Also, we just looked internally. I mean, there were people we were working with for a long period of time in different ways, in freelance or contract capacities, and they, lots of really awesome internal potential that we sort of just elevated. So while it has been challenging, I think people are definitely more motivated to solve really deep, important problems, and it's really just a matter of reaching out to them and working with them to figure out, how can you achieve your goals together. And I think we've been able to do that successfully, and definitely plan to keep ramping that up.
And my perspective, this is a tough one, right? Because this comes down to with the investors have a problem. It's like your investors don't want you to hire anyone, but like build $1 billion company. We really want you to do that. We just like you to do it with 5 people. Is that a problem? Can you like push people to the extreme? And I believe that it's all about humans. That's your investors, your team members, your customers, all of them. And you need to if you hyper focus on the humans that are a part of this, then you get it done. And so we've had to grow from 15 people to 54 people in the past 3 months. And Peerfit's already grown those big numbers. I even remember talking to Ed, and one of his things was like, there's a big step between when you get to those two numbers. Now it looks like we're going to double that again coming into next year to meet the demand. And so I feel like my big piece of advice here is you have to outsource that piece. You don't put up a job application to find someone to come to. You really need to target people specific based around a skill set or an experience that you have. So, we brought people in from all over the country. They're not here, some locally, as much locally as we can. And I think that, but we brought in, Kayla Matias, and she's been able to help us to really identify the best talent. And it's like, I couldn't speak more highly of another person as I can about her. She's amazing, and she really believes in what we're doing and understands what type of people we need on our team, and she'll do that research and all the references and checks, because you have to make sure that you're hiring right. There's nothing else. It's all about the team.
And Emma, I know Peerfit's always been remote. Do you know why the decision was made early on with that model? And do you think it played into how you were able to pivot so quickly during the pandemic?
I don't know that it played into the ability to pivot, but if you're talking about, to kind of echo the sense here about hiring, the ability to hire talent is a lot easier to do when you aren't restricted to their geographic location, right? You can hire them from anywhere. The pool is much greater. We have a lot of the leadership within Peerfit have this philosophy of always be interviewing, right? Always be like talking to potential candidates. And I did that a couple of times just last week. Even though I have no open positions, I have some idea of who I can reach out to when those positions kind of present themselves. But from a remote perspective, look, we've always, I don't know a time when we weren't. Ever since I've been here, we were. I think Ed started very early on with a very small office in Gainesville. But again, kind of quickly realized that we can all be effective in the way that we are doing our work in a remote way. It does rely or require you to have the necessary and appropriate infrastructure. I think one of the things that gets companies nervous about going to remote is, well, where's the accountability? How am I going to know that work's getting done? And so really putting in the right technology and using the right systems and communicating through Slack or something like that on a daily basis does set you up for success there. I think the biggest problem we had during the pandemic was the fact that they couldn't mobilely go and work from a coffee shop and were actually restricted to their own homes for most of the time. But for us, it's really helped us, again, not only from recruiting, but building a culture, which to us, we were told it was going to be impossible to have a healthy and productive and engaged culture when you were going to be remote, and we've proved that wrong. We won awards for our culture.
Definitely forward thinking. I know leading the company at any time is stressful, but I can't even imagine what it's like during a global pandemic. So what have you learned along the way, and what's your advice for managing a business and employees during such an uncertain time? And Eric, we can start with you.
Yeah, I think this is a big one for me, is personal responsibility. anytime that I notice that I'm starting to run a racket and I have something about, someone not meeting an obligation, or what I feel like someone's not performing, before I go and speak to anybody, it's like, sit down on a piece of paper and write, where are you not personally taking responsibility for my thoughts about this person? Because it creates a pattern of behavior. Like, we're just 95%, I believe personally, 95% of what I do, what we all do, is outside of our control. We're just robots that are programmed in advance by our past experiences. So in order to do that, like, you just have to constantly get present to, where you're not being grateful and where you're not taking responsibility for, and then kind of figure that out. So why is that connected to the pandemic? Is like, if you look, it's not a coincidence that you see a lot of social things that are happening right now during the pandemic, or right after the pandemic. It's because we were already like a ticking time bomb. Everyone's so stressed and has so much demand on them, so much like financial expectations, and there's just a lot going on. And then all of a sudden, 3 months changes so much, and it's like any little thing will explode. So I think that happens in a culture, and so it's really important to get present to that and make sure that you're focusing on communication and being a good leader for the people, because everyone is stressed. It doesn't matter what it is, whether it's personally, professionally, and it's just like, you just have to get mindful to that, and you have to really focus on people.
Dennis or Emma, what about you guys?
Yeah, that's I totally mirror Eric's sentiment. I think the most important thing is being in the right headspace and getting in front of any sort of anxieties or issues. Personally, I think that's just a prerequisite to being a good leader, is making sure you're in a good headspace. And I think that's kind of the core challenge for probably all of us in the last year or so, is staying positive and motivated. And I think secondarily, trying to encourage that in others. I think we've done a lot of good things in terms of encouraging people to take time when necessary, to spend time with their families if they can, and to take the time they need, basically, to be in the right headspace, and to encourage that kind of thinking for everybody. I think it's naturally been a challenge, but I do feel like being in that good headspace is the prerequisite. And then beyond that, I do also think it's really important to take this time to reevaluate, what are the problems that you're really solving, what really motivates you about working at your company, and really harp on that and talk about that and communicate that, because those motivations keep people doing good work and happy. Everybody wants to be useful, everybody wants to help others, and if you can really understand how your company achieves that on a daily basis, remind yourself of that, it helps to push through any kind of difficulty that everybody might face. So those are definitely some things that we've noticed.
Another thing too that I found, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Eric, go ahead.
No, I was saying a little caveat that Dennis reminded me of too, is that because you talk about the energies and getting people happy, is I think you should try to create that. We added 2 things that I think have really worked. So we create this 2-minute commercial. It takes about 3 hours total from the week, from our collective, from our team, our videographer and our marketing team. But basically it's updates, but it's funny. It looks like it's got the messages down the bottom, and it's things that you should know about our company, and then little surprise things, and then a commercial where we take someone from the company and we talk something about their character, like the the Dos Equis. We just did one of the guys we have on our team. He's actually on a disc on Mars, and he's done all this stuff, and so we made him. He's like, I don't often train in VR, but when I do, I use MetaOptic. And so it's an internal thing. And then every Friday we do Kahoot, which is a trivia quiz, and whoever wins Kahoot gets a free meal that gets on through Uber Eats. And so those 2 things kind of start the week out with something exciting to see, and then something at the end of a good close to the week, and it gets us all aligned. It makes us smile a little bit. And so that I think that really helps to be able to add that into the energy.
Yeah, and you both brought up points that I think we can mirror at Peerfit. For me, it was about really finding and creating an environment where the employees, my team, could come to me and say, look, I'm not in a great space, or I need a day off, or whatever might be on their minds this particular day or week. But I think in order sometimes to encourage that, we ourselves as leaders have to allow ourselves to be vulnerable. We have to allow them to see that, we're not always strong too. We have days where things are more irritating, or we're having higher stress. That was something that I learned through the pandemic, that you allow yourself to be a bit vulnerable. Look, we did a lot of fun things at Peerfit to really keep the culture as fun and collaborative as it is. Things like virtual Ironmans, for instance. We're an active company. We're Peerfit. So we did things like virtual Ironmans where people would just sign up. I'm going to swim a mile. I'm going to swim 500 meters. I'm going to run 6K. This across, I mean, you could sign up for anything you want. And the goal was that we were going to accomplish enough miles on a Saturday and Sunday that we as a team collectively completed an Ironman. We did marathons as well. We've joined at noon to do workouts digitally together so we can at least have a break throughout the day, but then collaborate as a team. So a lot of that stuff was really impactful. And then of course the team favorite is every so often we do a Friday afternoon happy hour, which my West Coast employees really love at noon.
All about building that culture then. I love it. One thing that's a little different, shifting gears, but just as important, is approaching diversity. So how have your companies approached diversity, equity, and inclusion differently this year? And whether that's prioritizing it or maybe you haven't changed it, how have you approached that?
So
and
I
Emma,
can
let's go back to you. Or go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, this is a really big one for me. So I like to, I actually pulled the numbers today because we've expanded the team. It's changed so much so that we have over 75% of our team are minority and 30% of them are women. And my goal is to get to 50%. And I know that like there's different perspectives out there on whether that should be a goal or not. Like, oh, it's good. Well, and this is what I look. I think that, you know, it behooves of our company to increase the aperture to be able to bring in different perspectives. I mean, we have every continent, Asian, people from Europe, people from Africa, people from South America, all this, every one of them has a different group of patterns and when you combine them and they each add their different perspective, you create something extraordinary. That's just my personal opinion on this and philosophy on this. And this was well before the movement for Black Lives Matter. Of course, now it's brought to the forefront. And so that's something that we actually track, but we never tracked it before. When the actual Black Lives Matter and I made my statement, we were 67% minority at that point. Whether that's like, again, and I think that that's something that's been a struggle, like it was by design. It didn't actually, I think that a lot of times you see these like tech companies and it's like all white males and it's like, oh, I don't know, I was just looking for the best. And it's like, you know, where you know, yes, maybe that's happened, just happened organically, but it's, you know, people like, it's natural, you're attracted to what you are. And so you don't notice these things, but you have to actively, I believe you have to actively increase, like we have, we brought in our first female onto the leadership team that Casey, our director of culture and director of VP of culture and productivity. We are actively looking to bring more on because I feel like at every level of the company and on the board, of course, we would love to bring on female and minority participants. And again, it's all about the perspective.
Definitely. Emma, what about you and Peerfit?
Yeah, I mean, we always had a kind of an employee-based committee, but we completely shifted and kind of introduced what we call our Peerfit Cares Committee. Look, and their objective or mission is to inspire community, and they're to do that through social, ethical, economical responsibility, but as well as really looking at ways about inclusion and diversity within the workplace. And they have that responsibility. It's their opportunity within this organization to hold us accountable and bring things to the forefront.
Interesting. Dennis?
Yeah, I think the wider aperture, like Eric said, I think is key. There are great people of all backgrounds, and it's worth looking and finding those people and bringing them in and just building a sort of a diverse thought to your, building your business. So I think we struggled with that. They used to call us the Knack guys because I think there was 4 dudes, and then somehow we, the brothers of one of the founders started coming in, and then it was like a fraternity, and it just kind of happened that way. And we looked at ourselves and realized like this is not the kind of culture. Like a bunch of dudes in a room don't always make the best decisions together. It's just we need to
make the same, very similar. Like, oh, what a great idea. Of course exactly. It is. It came from you, another version of you.
It's crazy, and you definitely you just become narrow-minded, and like we didn't want that, and so we started really thinking about that and looking for people and bringing people in, and we brought we've done significantly better. We've brought lots of women and people from Asia and India, and it's just once you get somebody in that looks and thinks different, you start diversifying like the kinds of even the ways you act and the things you talk about and the different perspectives. It's just I get why it's important for companies, and it's really easy to forget because you find like-minded people in the beginning, but you have to be proactive about it. And go honestly, opening up to remote flexibility was key for us to be able to do that. But yeah, it's helped a lot, honestly.
Big one, as also if people are interested in increasing this diversity, there's like a lot of organizations out there that see that. If they see you're you're not just lip service, you actually care about doing this, then you can get that. You're going to, first of all, you're going to attract them. So having it on your website and clearly defining what you believe and the type of people that you're trying to attract will detract the people that don't have those same views and will attract the ones you're looking for, right? And second is that there's like parity.org. There's all these organizations that if you are involved in, like you sign the parity pledge, which means that you're going to consider a female candidate for every single position, including an executive and board position. We signed that before the pandemic, and we continue to strive for that. And then now, because you committed to doing something like that, then you can also reach out to them like, hey, we're looking for somebody for this position. It's very hard to find them, but to at least, doesn't mean you have to hire a female for every position, but that you're at least going to be creative and find solutions and ways to engage, or at least to get applicants, right? And hopefully you are able to bring them on.
Yeah, it reminds me that we brought on a board member last year, Indian, and she volunteered when she came onto our board to meet with women who were under my supervision to talk to them about what their future opportunities would look like and help them kind of raise their expectations and walk them through her career and what she did and the path that she took, which was extremely helpful and really motivating to a group of women who hear me day in, day out, but a different perspective was really very, very helpful and impactful to these ladies.
Yeah, definitely love. We do have to round up a little bit, Eric. Sorry.
Right.
Love hearing those resources though, and I love, Dennis, that you guys realized you did have an issue and fixed it accordingly. One last question from me, and then we'll open it up to the audience. So, audience members, if you haven't, please submit questions in our question box. The last question for me, obviously none of us have a crystal ball, but how do you think Tampa Bay will fare this year? So do you think maybe there'll be more investment opportunities for startups? Do you think there'll be more startups in general, like we've been seeing across the nation, with people getting laid off and just starting their own thing? And anyone can take this question.
I mean, I'm bullish on Tampa Bay. I left the other bay in order to come here and build our company in the same place where we built the technology. I saw what was happening. It's been on a rise for a while. I don't think the pandemic's going to change that too much. I think it's going to, elevate the competition a little bit. But there are some people like Dr. Manassi is putting together a fund right now, Bluefin, that's I think is going to really change up and the landscape for getting capital. They're very sophisticated investors, in my opinion. They're the most sophisticated. They will be the most sophisticated in the area. And I encourage people to reach out to him and build a relationship with him in that group. And I think that things like that, plus all the other like Embark Collective and the Tampa Bay Wave that are out there that have been there, strong pillars of the community that really want to see us do well. I think that's a competitive advantage that's not going to go away for us.
Yeah, there is a great support system for startups in Tampa. Lauren, and your organization is one of them, right? There's a lot of media, a lot of attention is put onto startups, and it's celebrating their successes, and I guess really the struggles that they face along the way. And I think that's a huge credit to this community, and I do think we're a hotspot for startup.
Bold claim, I like it.
Yeah, I think Tampa has all the fundamentals. It's an amazing place to live and work, and there's an excited community to help it grow. And I think, there's challenges across the board, but Tampa's the kind of place that I think will benefit in the long term. I think, there's increasing investment and again, organizations like this and many others. There's a strong community, and that's why we came here. That's why I'm not leaving.
Love to hear that. Okay, we do have a couple questions. If you do have one, feel free to submit it to the question box. First one is, what can we expect from you all in 2021?
So from
What's that?
That crystal ball would be really nice, wouldn't it? We will be expanding our digital offering on our platform, hopefully bringing on a lot of other partners who will kind of not only be reselling our business, but be great advocates for us moving forward. And then hopefully introducing another product.
Fingers crossed. Eric, what about you?
A lot. It's almost like feel like we're taking on a lot more than we should, but it's just the nature. Again, the pandemic created a demand for what we do, and so we're gonna most likely by the end of the year double our team once again. We're gonna move. We're taking over Bay 3. We're gonna be having that whole office now, moving from the place we are now, and then we will close our Series B, and we'll be moving into over 30 different hospitals around the country.
Yeah, and for us, I think it's really just doubling down on our existing products and broadening them, so we better serve tutoring centers and just like really knocking the hell out of our online classroom and really digital tutoring sessions and making sure everybody gets matched and everybody has a good session. So doubling down there. And as far as team, I definitely, it'll probably be an additional 3, close to 20 by the end of the year, if not 20. And next year, I think there'll be significant growth. It's hard to say exactly how many, but my goal is to grow our development team as quickly as we can, so long as it's healthy. And I'm sure there's going to be some other bigger round of funding around the corner, but not really my place to say, at least not quite yet.
Someone asked a question. I think I like this question. Do you guys have time to take lunch breaks as busy as things have been? I think it can be a bigger question about how do you guys take care of yourself during this time where it's just like an upward trajectory like crazy?
I can start. Sometimes I remember to take a lunch break, but I really do think it's important. And I actually, people on my team have started like putting time on their calendar for lunch breaks because you really do need to decompress. And the reality is like you're productive when you're happy, and that's how you do your best work. That's how you make your best decisions. So I do think it's naive to think that you can overdrive yourself to a certain point and still do great work. The point's different for everybody, and it changes over your lifetime. But it's just about knowing where that point is for you and kind of respecting it.
I would say most days I would. I've also kind of just started going and taking a lot of walking meetings, so I'm not at my desk all of the time and can be out. If I don't need to be on a Zoom for every call, I won't be. I can be getting my steps in, getting fresh air, and really kind of getting my juices, creative juices flowing that way. But I try most days to take a break.
So, yeah, I think I have an irrational commitment to protecting my investors' investment and making the tough decisions because, I've gained 60 pounds in the past year and been like very tough for health issues, not really eating. I mean, I'm just being real with you. It's like it's not my personal health or my personal needs are not my priority at all. And I think that's certain companies, depending on the velocity of what you're growing, that's kind of what it is. And I'm trying to change that now so I do think that as a founder, depending on the trajectory that your business is on, and, that's why, a lot of people is always like, get money. But know that, you could be like some of these people in San Francisco and take money from people, but like not really care. Be like, oh, if I lose it, I learned something and I'll just do it in the next one. But I don't see it that way. I see it as like, if this doesn't work out, then it's not because I didn't give it all, right? Like I better be close to my deathbed. And so I do push myself beyond a lot of times, for instance, I was here yesterday and the day before working all day. I don't take weekends off, and I haven't done that in over a year. And, lunch, if like Sierra, my executive assistant, she's amazing, and she really supports me and helps me a lot. She'll bring me food sometimes, and I'll just try to eat it real quick in between a call or a meeting. And I just think that I don't think that's scalable. I don't think that's healthy. I don't think it's good. But I feel like kind of till about next year, beginning of next year, I'll start to reevaluate and try to take away some of those pounds and start focusing on myself again. But yeah, my personal situation is, and especially with the pandemic, accelerating the already aggressive plan that I was taking. So just yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's all you can do is your very best, though. But I think we covered a lot. We are good to go. So thank you guys very much for being on the panel today. And yeah, thank you. I really appreciate it. I hope you guys learned a lot from our audience. So if you guys can just close your webcams, I think. Just a fun time we're having right now with virtual panels. All right, now the moment everyone's been waiting for. We will be pulling up our video announcing our Inno on Fire honorees and Blazer winners. So I think we're going to put that up just now.
Hi, I'm Brian Kornfeld, CEO and co-founder of Synapse. We're here to connect, organize, and celebrate the innovators across the Tampa Bay market in the state of Florida. Through this year, our world has been absolutely rocked by the coronavirus pandemic, but a couple of great innovators have truly stepped up to be a leader. Here are the nominees for the 2020 Inno on Fire for Coronavirus Heroes.
Hi, I'm Cesar Hernandez, Managing Director of OmniPublic, and we are proud to introduce you the Inno on Fire winners in the 2020 Equity Advocates category. OmniPublic is a full suite public affairs firm that specializes in introducing new concepts and ideas into the market, and we navigate media, government, and industry for our clients. As a BIPOC founder myself, it is important to support local innovation, since I strongly believe that technology is the great equalizer. Meet the honorees in the Inno on Fire 2020 Equity Advocates category.
Well, how cool was that? I think it just is proof that innovation really is happening here in Tampa Bay. So big congrats to all the honorees, especially our Blazer winners, Omnivore, Lunchpool, Spirion, Just Protect, Script, Amrock Fab Lab, Immertec, Lumit Analytics, Ballast Point Ventures, and eNotary. Congratulations. Thank you guys all for coming out today and hanging out with us. A recap of this will be up tomorrow at tampabayinno.com. But otherwise, thank you so much and have a great night.